I started coming down here, I actually met Sharen a few years ago, and I was immediately impressed with her, as I know all of you are too. And then as I've been coming down here, she's had kind of an informal role on your behalf as being kind of my ambassador to the whole Dayton area. So we've sat down many times actually before these discussions ever happened, and she really taught me about what makes this whole area work, and why she loves it, and why she cares about it. And what I've learned about her, and I just have so much respect for her, is that she's smart, and she's tough, and she's capable, and she believes in every single thing that she is talking about. There's not, I hate when there's politicians that have one, you know, they have a public persona and they have the real person. What you see is what you get with her. She believes. She believes it, and she's lived it. And it's not just where she came from. I know she was talking about, you know, she came from very humble beginnings, and you know, didn't come from a lot of money. Father was in law enforcement. It's not, but it's more than that. It's not just where do you come from. It's whether you forget where you came from, and she's never forgotten where she came from. And I also just want to say, you have a great new mayor here. And she said something that I hadn't heard before, but she was talking about how we have parity on this Democratic ticket because there's 6 people on the ticket, 3 men, 3 women. So for the first time, that's actually a first in the history for the state of Ohio. First. That's right. And I'm very comfortable with that, by the way. I'm one of 8 kids, and I had 6 sisters and 2 brothers, so I thought that was parity when I was growing up. You know, here's the thing, to be serious for a moment. This is what I've really learned in about the last year. I've been in all 88 counties in Ohio in the last year. And I've done a lot of talking, but I've also done a lot of listening. And I've learned a lot in the last year. And I've heard the same concerns and the same issues and the same things that are really weighing on people's minds in really every single county. It doesn't matter whether it's my county, which is the biggest county, or other major counties, or the smallest counties in the state. There's a lot of people in a state of more than 11 million people. There's a lot of people that are really struggling to make it. And this is what Sharen and I both understand, is that we have a governor who doesn't represent them. He represents a very small group of people. If you look at all the big issues, what they all have in common, and if you kind of try to diagnose why does the governor take the positions that he does, it's because he's representing a very small group of people. And that's not what government was supposed to be established for in the first place, not a democratic form of government. But that's what's happened. Really, state government has been hijacked for a very narrow agenda on all kinds of issues, And there's an inside group and there's an outside group. And you're either one of the insiders or you're on the outside looking in. And by the way, if you're not sure which group you're in, that means you're in the outside, okay? Because the people in the inside group, trust me, they know it. They're loving it. And you can go through all the major issues, whether it's jobs and economic development, where they have set up this Jobs Ohio scheme where for a very small group of people, they can be the beneficiary of some great policies from the state, but if you're a small business, if you're an average working person, you're not going to get help from Jobs Ohio. If you're looking at your tax bill, if you're one of the wealthiest people in the state, congratulations, because you got a tax cut, but if you're a working person or one of the poor in this state, your taxes probably went up. So for a small group of people, it was a great deal, but for most people in this state, we got stuck with the bill. If you care about local government services, whether it's police or fire or garbage pickup or social services, your services got cut. But they took those proceeds, they sent the money on a one-way trip to Columbus, and they put it into tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the state. If you believe in public education, which 90% of students in Ohio attend, you saw the number of teachers be cut dramatically in this state. And again, local school districts have been stuck with the bill. So over and over and over again on all these issues, you've seen state government being put on the side of a very small group of people. And yes, it also applies to women's rights. And I know that the Republicans get frustrated that we keep talking about women's rights so much, but I have a very simple proposal to make to Governor Kasich. I will stop talking about women's rights when he stops trying to restrict women's rights. Let me just close with this. Governor Kasich and his friends try to pretend that they're not concerned about this election. They're very concerned about this election. Sharen mentioned one poll. There's another poll that came out. Actually, the most recent poll, we were down by 2 points. They already hired a couple kids out of college that follow myself, and now they're going to be following Sharen around, and they try to record everything we do, which, I hope they take notes. I'm glad they're recording what we're doing. And the other thing I would say to that is those 2 kids that they hired to do that, those are 2 of the only jobs that they created the last year. Talk about something real practical, because I know a lot of you worked on campaigns. Let's just talk about something real practical. They have a big advantage, and here's what their advantage is. When you take government and you put it on the side of a very small group of people, and you do some very big favors for a very small group of very powerful people, they repay those favors. So they have an enormous amount of money at their disposal. And we'll do our best, to try to keep up with that. But we know they're going to have an advantage in that area. But we have our own advantages too. First of all, we're right on all of these issues. And we're right on these and the polls show that too. And secondly, we have, as this gathering on very short notice demonstrated, we have really the people behind us. Not just the men and women of organized labor, although I know a lot of you are here, and thank God that you're here. Respecting organized labor isn't just good for union members, it's good for all workers in Ohio. Governor Kasich and his team really, I think, talk down to people in Ohio. They really think, Sharen mentioned that the people here have a memory. We really do understand what happened in the first couple of years of this administration. We're not going to be distracted by them changing the subject in the 6 months running up to it. I saw a headline the other day in the Columbus paper saying that local governments are getting more money from the state of Ohio. Really? That is news to me. That is news to me after 3 years of cuts. They will do the same things on educational issues. They will rediscover all kinds of things that they didn't care about for the first 3 years. But look, here's what's so important, and the bottom line is it's the reason I picked Sharen, is it's not just all the issues that we've been fighting for and struggling over the last 3 years of the Kasich administration. It's making sure that you put people in office who have your back and share your values. Because there are going to be issues that we're not even talking about yet that will happen in the next few years. And that's why it's so important to put the right people in office. Let me give you a specific example of what I'm talking about. I was down in southeast Ohio a few days ago, and I met with some of the steel workers that had been laid off at the plant down in Ormet. For those of you that may not know about that situation, it's a steel plant that employed about 1,000 workers that were making a living wage, and some of them had been working there for 28, 30 years. Some of them were 6 months away from retirement. And when that plant shut its doors, do you know, ladies and gentlemen, they collected about 10,000 signatures that they delivered to the governor, and they asked for one very simple thing. Talk to us. Listen to us. Work with us. We're losing our livelihoods. Will you at least come here and talk with us? Not a single response from the governor himself.
That's the real jobs, Ohio.
Now, that wasn't necessarily an issue back in 2010. Back then, and you know, the Dayton area had been hit with job losses. I remember Governor Kasich saying that if companies were going to try to leave the state, he would sit on the hood of the car to try to prevent any CEO from leaving. Do you remember some of those comments? You did? Well, that's because it was election time. But once the election was over, people show their real colors. And the folks in that southeast part of Ohio, down in Hannibal, Ohio, they've learned. They've seen what happens when you elect somebody that doesn't really have your back. It doesn't really believe in what you believe. It doesn't really represent you. He is representing someone. It's just not you. And it's probably not anyone you know. But he is doing a great job for a few people. But it's not the people in this room. And it's not the people that are doing most of the living and working and sweating and struggling in this state. And that's what we need a new governor for. That's what it's all about. Let me just leave you with this request. The most powerful thing in politics is not a super PAC or a big corporation or $50 million in campaign contributions. It's, well, we're not turning that down, no. As you can tell, Sharen is not going to be shy about giving me advice. That's why I love her. That's not the most powerful thing in politics. The most powerful thing in politics is a conversation between two people about what's really going on. What we need your help with in the next 9.5 months, 9, 10 months, is we need you to have a conversation with as many people as you can. We need to have millions of conversations. We only lost that election that had such dire consequences for Ohio back in 2010. We only lost that election by 77,000 votes. We've got to have more than 77,000 conversations. We've got to have 7 million conversations in the next 10 months. We can do that because as much power and influence and money that they have on our side, we do have the issues on our side and we have the people on our side. So I appreciate your support today, and I'm just asking you that and it's not just for Sharen and I, it's for all of those people who haven't been represented in the last 3 years. And they don't want government to do everything, but they do want government to be on their side when they need it. And we need to have conversations with people, real conversations, neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, coworker to coworker, door to door, and neighborhood by neighborhood. We need to do that in the next 10 months. Can you help us do that?